I can tell there's some frustration there. You've probably like lived that.
Oh, I literally picture someone while I'm saying these things. Like,
Avoidance, they don't want love. They do. They want it so bad. As soon as the increase of commitment happens, then the fear comes in. If I'm committed, then I can get hurt. I don't think people should be friends with their exes. It's very difficult, and most of the time, one person, if not both, are lying about not having feelings still. It's kind of like growing up. Like guys who have friends who are girls, they're hot. You always like them. You pretend you're their friend, but you always want to be with them.
there's always one that goes, we're not doing anything else. But the other one is usually like, man, if you give me the chance,
I will do it. Yeah,
I'm in.
totally. He's left with less dating opportunities and his mountain of evidence that he's not good enough. And then he finds this escape hatch. He finds women who are infinitely beautiful. They never reject him. They always say yes. 2, 3 in the morning, doesn't matter. She's always awake.
I mean, I'm like wildly disappointed with the dating world these days. It really sucks.
I'm interested to hear what sucks for you. I feel like there's what sucks for everyone is maybe a little bit different, but probably similar.
I mean, if you believe in hypergamy, I'm screwed. So let's hope that, if that, the like hypergamy dating our hierarchy, like where like men date laterally and down and women date laterally and up as far as like success and intelligence. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Ever heard about that?
I mean, I don't haven't looked into it much, honestly. So no, why would you say that you're screwed if that's the case?
Because that would mean I need to find someone that's been more successful than me, someone that is smarter than me, someone that is
Ah,
more dominant than me.
yeah.
You
Yeah, that's probably going to be challenging. I really
don't
don't.
think that's true?
No, I mean, in some cases, I think it can be. Sure, there could be patterns, but I don't know. I would really want to ask, like, is that like a pop culture like ideology, like a thing that we've kind of decided is true, or is there like data to really support it? Um,
Yeah, it's data. It's like past. It's basically like the historical trends. But then, of course, you have to ask the question if that's the historical trend, and if, from an energetic, like more mystical standpoint, like thoughts become things, and what you think about happens. And if you just
mm,
keep repeating what used to happen out loud, then presumably you might be creating that similar dynamic over and over again.
yeah, 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 that could be. I think when people bring conscious awareness to patterns that are subconscious, then they start to break them. And so it doesn't matter if there's like a pervasive subconscious pattern. It's about finding those who are willing to say, like, oh, I recognize it and I'm cool with something different. Because there's two sides of that coin. If you're really looking at that ideal, it's like on the one hand, there's the male perspective, which you don't really have much control over because you're not the one living in their body and making the
Right.
choices. But it's like they're either they're wanting to date laterally and down, but maybe you run across somebody who is aware of the idea. Is like, no, like I actually like to date up. It's cool. It's inspiring. And then there's you, and you have a other half of the cycle, which is you can say, well, okay, maybe there is a subconscious part of me that's unwilling to date the other way, right?
Yeah, I mean that's 100%. I mean, you know, you have to look at yourself. That's always the challenge in the relationship is
Yeah.
to see yourself and find what your part is in it. And I have experienced where, it doesn't seem to matter, right? But
Right.
then there's almost like this primordial sort of urge or challenge within them that while it seems cool and okay to have someone successful and medium intelligence and these things that
Yeah.
it does end up getting to them. Like there's something in a man where
Mm.
they don't feel enough then, they it bothers them in the end. Like it's cool at
Mm.
first until, they can't afford the trip or they can't, even if I don't care to pay for it, right? They're like, there's something within that dynamic that ends up feeling really disempowered, I think, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting one to play out more. I'd be interested to look at like some of the research behind it. I don't dabble too much in that dynamic, but the thought
Mm.
that does come to my mind is I work a lot within like the context of attachment styles and
Oh,
helping
yeah.
people basically heal kind of the wounding that causes them to show up in certain ways in relationships. And I think about that is that oftentimes the male wounding looks more like fears of rejection and not being good enough. And then it most often, not always, presents in like avoidance in relationships where they'll like shut down, like withdraw, avoid commitment, all that kind of good stuff. And
Hmm.
I think about in the pattern that we're talking about, maybe it's triggering the same kind of wounding, but in a different way. It's like eventually playing out, oh man, my partner, she seems so much greater than me in these areas. And whether you're actually rejecting them or not, or thinking that they're
Right.
not good enough, it's the story in their head. And so
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think it's not definitely not impossible to find. It is challenging to find a guy who's aware of that pattern and is also cool with working through the discomfort of maybe that moment when he starts to face the discomfort of a changed social dynamic where he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not like making as much money or whatever.
Do you find that it's hard to get men to do that? Like I feel like traditionally it's like women are comfortable to kind of like go to therapy and look at things and talk about things, and men are like, ah, whatever, you know? They just kind of want to move on, and they don't want to get into the minutia and into the feelings of it and the challenges. Do you find that?
It's clear that like women will seek out like mental health services and those kinds of things way more often than men. Even like from a marketing standpoint, I don't really market primarily to men. I mean, or to men like in general. Like most of all of like our branding, for example, has women in it, and women tend to be a more anxiously attached, which is who we help anyway. And so there is some truth to that. However, I think we can look at a truth like that and then start to generalize it and get in our own head this like horrible bias that like
Yeah.
all men are that way, and then it's not going to work out, and then I'm just going to find all these dudes who are like are not into actually doing the work. Whereas like we definitely get some of the most amazing guys in our work as well. I mean, it's primarily women, but we get a ton of guys who are so dedicated to making the change. And I think what happens is there's an intersection between pain and patterns that are painful that keep showing up in their life,
Yeah.
and then that pain increases curiosity, which is readily met with information now online. Whereas before, it was not readily met. It was much more difficult. And so they can, in secret, kind of consume the information and get warmed up to the idea of, oh, well, maybe I do like want to go to therapy, or I want to get some help or something like that. And still in secret, if there's like a shame element to this where they're not willing to admit it, they're able to go and get some help too. And so I think there is definitely a change happening for men specifically in their frequency and willingness to engage in kind of in these kinds of services or help.
Yeah. What about these? I feel like men's groups and men helping men is becoming more popular too. You said you appeal to
Yeah.
women, but it almost seems like, is that an emerging category? And do you think that's more helpful for men than talking to a woman because they can relate, or maybe they trust them more?
It's interesting, more or less helpful. It really just depends on the guy. I mean, a good friend of mine, Connor Beaton,
Yeah,
he does
I know.
man
I love
talks.
him.
You know
Yeah.
Connor?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Vienna, his wife, was my therapist for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah, they're awesome. Connor's a good friend of mine. He's like one of the most genuine friends where he'll just send me like a voice note and ask me like how my son is doing, like a week after meeting him. And I was like, dude, I love this guy. And it's because
Yeah.
he's done the work and he knows that men
Yeah.
need that. But I think that's the piece, actually, to answer the question. He's embodying the thing that I think men with men helping kind of scenarios in the men's group, why it's so beneficial, because men tend to isolate a lot more when it comes to these kind of issues, right? We're not chatting about it at brunch. We're not, it
You're
even makes me
not like,
chuckle
I
saying it.
seriously, you really never talk about chicks at lunch or dinner or during the game or,
I mean, I'm a rare exception. I mean, look, I went into this field of like, again, a master's in therapy. Like, I'm totally the guy who would chat about that stuff. I think
yeah.
the general theme, though, if you look at even surveys, the classic question, do you have like a best friend that you could call at 3 in the
Right.
morning if you needed something? And most guys are like, no, I really don't. And so I think that is so beneficial, the camaraderie. But I will say, if a guy has wounding specifically around women, and sometimes a woman like therapist or coach is better than having a man, because
Sure.
there's that
Sure.
element of her being in the room and like,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like that whole They say you got to be healed before you enter a relationship, but it's if you are hurt within relationship, it's where you end up getting your final healing within one as well. That it takes being able to find someone that you can heal that with because you can trust them or they trust you or they believe in you and you then
Yeah.
believe in yourself. What
Yeah.
is it that gets men to do the work then? Like what? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like women are more ready. So from just your own experience standpoint
Yeah.
and your and your work and the people that you work
Yeah.
with, like what is it that finally gets a man to go, "Oh shit. Like I can't keep repeating this," or like I got to grow up. Like Peter Pan is not going to be me. What is it that happens within the male psyche and their and your reality?
For lack of a better way of saying it, let's say there's like more admirable or like quote righteous desire for getting into therapy, and like ones that are like less desirable or less admirable. But either way, it's cool that they're
What do you
going to
mean
choose to get help.
like just getting laid or
Well,
what do you mean
no,
by
I'll give you an example. There's a big population of men who will like get dragged to couples therapy by their wife for the first time, and it's 100% on her.
sure.
However, the fact that he's there is awesome. Like the fact that he's doing something is awesome. And oftentimes those guys will like warm up into it. I remember when I first started doing like couples therapy, I had one of those guys and I would always do individual sessions, like one with the wife and one with the husband. And I remember kind of having to get their buy-in by speaking their kind of language. So I'd be
Right.
like, listen, dude, the reason we talk about emotions is because of this. And look how and like almost lay it logically out. And he's like, oh, I'm bought in. And I'm like, and if I can help you do that, then this is what happens in your relationship. There's less fighting, there's less complaining, there's more sex, there's this, there's that. And he's like, oh, okay. Like I'm on board. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's about like laying out the logical pieces and connecting it for a guy who's a little bit more resistant. But I
Mm,
will say, I think what is happening now is that being a guy. I mean, I think the men who are paying attention to what women are actually saying are the ones who are doing their own work, because women are saying we want safe guys who are like help us feel comfortable and supported and loved, not just you know not just brawn and that's it. Like we want something a little bit deeper, and guys are listening and going, oh, okay, so it's about like emotional connection and all of that. They're maybe realizing I have a hard time with that, and they're taking the initiative to do that work. I think there's a lot of guys out there who are actually paying attention, which is pretty cool to see.
it makes me think about the whole safety thing. There was something I saw on Instagram this morning. I didn't have the balls to repost it because it makes it look like I'm like struggling or something like that. But I sent it to all my other friends, and it was
Yeah,
like basically what a woman wants to hear is from a man is I'm not going anywhere. And then not to go anywhere, even when it gets difficult. Like I'm just not
yeah,
going anywhere. And
yeah.
instead of reposting that and saying what I sent it to my friends and I said, I live to hear this, but I think I would die if I actually did. Like I feel it seems like a mythical creature out there that would say that.
Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Challenge just seems to be too much for most people. Like I'm one of those
In
people that's just like whatever it takes. Like maybe my fault is my flaw or part of my problem is like I'd never live like I don't know when to let go. I see the good in them. I can sense their essence. I know who they are. I'm not dating potential, but everybody sees someone's potential,
For
right?
sure.
That's
For
the whole
sure.
point of seeing something in someone is you're like, wow, I see you in totality. I see what's possible for you. Like that makes me happy to
Right.
see. It just seems like they never, yeah, I don't know, don't step into it and don't step into like don't have that no quit attitude. It always seems there's a quit attitude. And I don't know if that's there's too many options, there's too much doubt, or as you've said, with any relationship conflict, it's always results to insecurity.
I mean, there's a thousand different answers that can like, go into that, right? We can peel back all of the layers, and it depends on who we're talking about, right? Because in the world that I deal with, I tend to deal with the person who their core fears and beliefs that sabotage them are fears of abandonment and the belief that they're not good enough.
Mm.
And it plays out in certain behaviors, and the we kind of put under this umbrella of like an anxiously attached person, right? And in an anxiously attached environment, they might do something similar to like what you're describing, but not to say that this is you, that they will overly emphasize the good in a person and ignore things like red flags, things that could lead to rejection, abandonment, it not working out, because there's almost this primal desperation to get the thing that they're longing for, which is
Yeah.
connection, safety, closeness. And really, it's not even to get that, it's to run away from the abandonment or the
Sure.
rejection.
Yeah.
And so they wind up making all sorts of mistakes. Like I remember I was in one of these relationships. My goodness, I was very anxiously attached. I was engaged, and this girl seemed to have all sorts of cool things that were very desirable, not only to me, but to other people. And I think my own insecurities liked the fact that other people looked on her and the relationship and thought,
Mm.
wow, Trevor must be something to have that going on, right? I will say I got 10 times better now because my wife is amazing. But at the time, it was that everything about the relationship kind of fed the beast of my fears and anxiety, and they kept them a little bit at bay, but it also kept them heightened because I didn't have a good relationship. She had her own deep fears and insecurities, and it created just this chaos in the relationship. And I stayed and I stayed and I stayed and I made every excuse possible, to the point of like getting engaged after like a horrendous relationship. And I was actually thinking about it yesterday because I talk about these stories so much. I was
Yeah.
like, man, one day we're like sitting there at lunch and she sees my phone, and she gets like all uncomfortable all of a sudden. And like I like had put my phone away, I wasn't thinking about it, but I could tell something was off. I could always like sniff it in the air, like her
Oh yeah.
her
Well, you
body
could sense the
changes.
frequency, the energy. It's palpable.
Oh yeah. And I was like, well, what's going on? And she's like, who's that girl you're texting? And it was literally her. And I was like, it's you. Like, here's the picture of you. I thought about that moment and I was like,
Mm.
if that was me now, the secure version of me, I'd have been like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this, especially if that happens on repeat, which it happened on repeat over and over. And yeah, I let stuff like that slide because my fears trumped my wisdom.
Hmm.
My wisdom wasn't intact, right? It's like the base brain, your amygdala and all that good stuff down there. That's the thing that's like firing. And if that's firing and going, it's going to override the front part of your brain, which all it makes all the rational decisions in your life. And so I was totally stuck in that pattern. And I think people get in that pattern over and over again. They extend these relationships, which only consumes time. And time is probably the most important resource you have if you're trying to be, if you like monogamy, which I'm a big fan of, if you're trying to be available for other relationships, you can't be in one that's not good for you. And so maybe the answer to a lot of people who listen to this is like, oh, I need to build security enough to recognize red flags, place boundaries, and when boundaries are broken, I then make the choice to move on because I can't lock myself up with people who aren't good for me just because I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, why do people leave too early then? Because that surely has to happen on the other side, right? And
Oh yeah.
I like wanted you to go through the attachment styles, but I'm enjoying this like flowy conversation. So then what? Because that would be more avoidant, right? The anxious will probably stay longer and never give
Yeah.
up. And the avoidant is
Yeah.
far more on the likelihood of just like, oh shit, run. Like things are getting serious here. So
Totally.
like what, because there's the other side of that too, where you're like, what, everything seemed fine or it seemed solvable. Or like, how about maybe you tell me what the problem was instead of just leaving and then telling me and being like, we didn't even have a chance to solve this. Like
Yeah.
you let it fail us because you didn't even say anything.
I can tell there's some frustration there. You've probably like lived that. If
Oh, I
I can,
literally picture someone while I'm saying these things.
I
Like
can
if
feel
you
it.
know, I mean, like I am a civilian expert on attachment
Okay.
styles.
Okay. I love
And I
that.
always find out about them after it's over. That's the frustrating part. And I don't know
Mm,
why, but when I'm in it, you're in it. And then it's like, I don't know if it's because I'm not thinking about it ending and it's so wild. But then as soon as it's over with,
yeah.
within days, because part of my coping mechanism is to research and figure things out. Like I
Yeah.
like to understand things, and that no longer than a week. Within a week of it ending, I know what they are. I already know their attachment style. I'm like, oh wow, how did I not see that? Like it
Right.
was like within days after I was like, oh my God, he was a narcissist. Like checked every box. Oh wow, he was a fearful avoidant. How did I not see that? Like
Right.
it's like so obvious,
Right. Yeah.
but not
Well, I think
during.
yeah, I mean it's definitely I think it takes some reps and it takes some practice. And I will say there's kind of a combination of as a person becomes more secure themselves, whether they're coming out of avoidant or anxious, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Security is kind of that destination where we have our own intact self-worth. We don't fear rejection or abandonment. We know it could happen and it's sad when it does, but it doesn't rock our world. You kind of
Mhm.
fill up your own emotional cup. You tend to come to the relationship with a lot more like clarity and insight because you can see things from more of like a, for example, if your partner all of a sudden starts dodging you like the red gym ball at an eighth grade gym class, and you're like,
Yeah.
what the crap just happened? You're not saying, oh, it's on me, or making up some story. You're like first curious. And then I think that curiosity matched with like knowledge, like conversations like this, knowing what to look for, even kind of milestones like, hey, I want to have these types of conversations in my relationships at these certain points, because those conversations could be checkpoints for kind of figuring out if somebody's a little bit more avoidant, right? You don't want to probably do it date one. You're like, okay, so tell me about your like insecurities. This is going to be fun.
Right.
Probably not. But at a certain point, a question like, yeah, like, hey, what are you like wanting in relationships? And what's your long-term goal? If they're like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, okay. That's probably not a good sign. If
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah. I don't know. It's a bad answer.
right, right, bad answer, wrong. I'm imagining like Willy Wonka, the old school one, when they pull the lever and the bad egg and the girl goes down in the chute. It's like, nah, that's not it. So I would say that gets easier. But to like circle around and answer the question about the avoidant, what happens for them? So we're already kind of describing the attachment styles. The anxious, I'll review it real quick, is primary fear is abandonment, is the word that resonates the most with them. And they usually have this either sense that they're not good enough, self-worth challenge, or they're afraid that they're not good enough. It's kind of like the jury's still out on it and they're not sure. They're waiting for somebody to decide for them. And then the avoidant, their wounding more has to do with kind of being left on their own emotionally. And the reason why this happens for men more is because like it's just patterned into our culture. Little girls who cry get a lot more pick up and hey, sweetie, come sit on my lap and you're a princess and I love you and all like the emotional input more likely. Whereas boys, the coping mechanism is no, 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 like you're good, or your emotions are really uncomfortable for me, is what mom and dad are basically saying to them. And so in the case of the avoidant, the trigger is closeness. They logically want closeness. And people are like, avoidance, they don't want it. They don't want love. They do. They want it so bad. They want closeness. That's why in the beginning, the anxious feels so good. Because let's say it's anxious female, avoidant male, and she's like giving him
Just
all
call
the
the
tons
anxious
of
Danica.
love. Yeah, well, anxious Danica, she's giving him all the love, all the approval, and he's like, yeah, he's getting everything he wants without his fear being present, which is commitment. As
Yeah.
soon as the increase of commitment happens,
Yeah.
then the fear comes in. Oh my gosh, if I'm committed, then I can get hurt. Then there's the possibility of rejection.
Because that's what
Um,
happened, right? Because that's what happened when they were a kid. Is like,
yes.
oh, wow, if I get too close, mom, dad, whoever,
Yep.
and then like obviously that ruptured and created a trauma for them that made them avoidant. And they're so afraid that it's going to repeat itself, essentially, even though you're saying that because they didn't get it, they actually so deeply seek it because they're trying to solve that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's better. What I've found too to be a little common, I don't know if this is true in your experience, I'd love to hear, is that I always feel like there's for the avoidant, there's the deepest fear is someone leaving them because essentially their main caregiver, whoever created that trauma, like kind of left them, didn't
Right.
really
Right.
care enough in their eyes.
For sure.
And that is their deepest pain trauma. That is the deepest wound. And that it's they end up getting rid of the person they're with because them leaving is just a little easier than being left.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they
Totally.
protect themselves against the deepest wound by going with like one's just a little bit less deep because it's all about
Yeah.
not it affecting like the deep wound. Does
Right.
that happen? Is that what they do?
Oh, totally, totally. Because, and you'll see evidence of this in the pattern of the anxious after, or sorry, the avoidant after they relieve the relationship. The anxious are like, what's happening for him? What, he just like all of a sudden stops talking to me. He seems fine. He's going on trips. He's with his friends. His life looks good and I'm breaking apart. Well, let's pull back the curtain and like figure out what's actually going on for them. And it's this. It's in the beginning, they're going to feel this sense of relief, this sense
Mhm.
of freedom. They get their independence back, the things that they use to protect themselves, which is like staying really busy, staying really independent, getting involved in work. They might do things like quick flings or hookups or other things like that to kind of soothe. And I don't even think they recognize it as this, but it's it's a combination of soothing the pain because there is still pain there from the breakup itself, or numbing the pain, I should say, and experiencing the relief or the bliss of like not
Mhm.
getting rid of the person, but getting rid of their fear or getting rid of the thing that triggers them. And eventually, you'll see it like 2 to 3 months after a breakup, they'll reach out oftentimes. And the reach out is not ever, well, unless they've been doing their work for like 2 or 3 months, then maybe it could be. But usually it's not accountable. It's not like, I'm so sorry, I messed up, I got patterns, I realized them, I was wrong, I put you through something, let's do this. If you get that, like, okay, cool, we can chat again, let's figure something out. That's some real awareness and accountability. But usually they'll like text you a random thing, like, do you have my shirt? Or like, they'll send you a meme or like just something totally random that like is their way of trying to crack open the door because they've started to settle into the realization of losing somebody who's amazing and providing a lot of their needs and a lot
And
of
their
things that
nervous
they
system
want.
is down
Yep,
regulated now too, right? So
it
they're
is.
kind
It
of
is.
operating a little bit more normally. Why would someone just want to be friends? Like you hear that sometimes too. Like I've had that. Like let's just be friends. And I am personally of the camp that if I've been with you in that way, like I love you, I care about, I don't see you as a friend. I'm
No.
like maybe I don't know. I'm sure there's somewhere down the line or some scenario with some level of a relationship. But if it was a serious one, I, I don't ever, I'm probably never going to speak to you again, you know?
Yeah.
But there are people that just think that you can be friends with your ex. And I've definitely been asked, like, can we be friends? What is that? Is
What
that
does that even
them
look like?
actually just feeling like they want to be your friend because you're cool and all? Or is that them going like, man, if we could just put the title of friends on this and then I'll kind of proceed as normal, like we won't even probably be able to tell. I don't have the pressure, but I get all the access.
I think you're hitting one of the possibilities is very likely,
Yeah.
right? To say that this is like universally always what happens,
Yeah.
no, but yeah, definitely. That can definitely happen. And in that case, that's obviously not like what you want. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to anybody who's on the other side of that. And quite frankly, and I know that it happens in rare cases, but the majority of cases, I don't think people should be friends with their exes. Like it just
Why?
doesn't,
What's your explanation?
well, it's very difficult. And most of the time, one person, if not both, are lying about not having feelings still, usually. Um, and and it's interesting that these men are saying it, and I'm gonna guess that men in your life are saying it because of maybe the first factor that we talked about is you are a really cool person to have a friend because of your success and the things that you do and probably the access that you have to like all sorts of cool stuff in your life, right? You've accomplished some amazing things, and it's great to have friends like that. Especially men value high caliber friendships where there's like,
Mhm.
as gross of a word as this is, like networking, right? Kind of like hate that idea of like, wait, you were my lover and now you're like wanting to network with me. Blech. But I think you probably experience that more. Usually, um, the women are kind of more open to friendship. If they're anxiously attached, they're still going to have feelings most likely. If they're not, then they're like, sure, we can be friends. It's kind of like growing up. Like guys who have friends who are girls, they're hot. You always like them. You pretend you're their friend, but you always want to be with them. There's
Yeah,
never a
yeah.
case.
I was gonna ask you about that next and be like, do you think guys and girls can be friends? Because, like, probably just giving it away here. There's my assessment in my experience, my is that there's always one that's a gatekeeper. There's always one that goes, we're not doing anything else. Like, but the other one is usually like, man, if you give me the chance,
I will do it. Yeah,
I'm in.
totally.
And
Totally.
it doesn't mean you can't be friends, but there's always a tension there. There's always something there. And perhaps there's flirting, there's whatever, like joking
Right.
around, but there's always a gatekeeper. And
Yeah.
I think it's important that you said that too on the exit of a relationship is that there's going to be one that still probably wants to see if we can do it again. I fear I have a lot of guy friends, and look, I get it. I'm a big gatekeeper. But and so, do you think it's different for girls to have friends that are guys, or do you think it's the other, like when guys have a lot of girlfriends, is there one that's a more safer bucket, or are they all the same?
Well, I think it just depends on temperament too, in a lot of ways. It depends on the guy, depends on the girl, and so it's hard to like generalize the patterns per se. I think the important when I think about a conversation like this, I think about the application. Like what is the problem we're trying to solve or the answer that we're looking for? And it's maybe that person who does have a friendship where there's some tension. Maybe you're on the end where you're like, I desperately want to be with this person and it's never going to happen. And I keep pouring in my time and my effort. Let's take an example. A woman with a man and they're best buddies and he's just never really going to be into her, but she's getting a lot of the cues that she's looking for in a relationship. He's understanding, he's kind, he shows up for her, he's like changing her tire, like whatever. And not that she can't do it, but
Okay, you don't have
he's
to make that. You don't have to say that just because I'm here right now.
yeah, well, I appreciate it. I know the lot.
But I get what you're trying to say.
It's the concept, right? He's coming in and he's doing some rescuing behaviors, which I think like just innately most women love that. Whether they can have the capacity to do whatever he's doing for her or not, she's gonna enjoy that. And so if I were to talk to her and she's stuck in that pattern and it's then blocking her, like I would ask, what's the impact? She's like, well, the impact is I make myself infinitely available for him at any given moment, and I'm no longer dating other people. I'm like, oh crap. Like, okay, maybe we need to either I would say first of all, before we throw the friendship out the window, because he might be a good guy. That sounds like a very established friendship. I don't want to encourage people to just start dumping their best
Yeah.
buddies who are opposite sex. But I would say, oh, okay, we probably need to increase a sense of security and decrease a sense of scarcity when it comes to love. And if you're anxious, you're going to believe the love and opportunities for connection are very scarce. You're going to see one person as your knight in shining armor, and that's it. Then you're going to believe that you're not good enough to find somebody else. And it's like, whoa, we need to do the deeper work to deconstruct those core beliefs and fears so that maybe you do then in the future show up in this relationship with your guy friend and it is fully platonic because you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've shut off that idea. I went on a date with a guy last night, really enjoyed it, and it's none of my best friend's business on what went there, or I could tell him and it doesn't matter. He's not going to get jealous. So I would say before throwing out an established friendship, yeah, you would probably want to do deeper work to help yourself be there. But if it's like fresh off of
Yeah.
an ex or a breakup, yeah, just for the sake of not getting sucked back into whatever relationship you were in, which ended for a reason, right? There was something wrong. You'd need some space. You need some distance.
Nothing
Wouldn't that-
changes if nothing changes,
Nothing changes. No,
especially when there's no time to let it happen.
no.
So, like, okay, so like, say you get into a relationship and there's just so many options these days. There's so
Mm,
many ways to communicate with people that isn't through text, whether it's social media or the apps or God knows whatever. Like, there's so many ways that it doesn't pop up on your phone. Who knows, right? Like, I think that there's going to be an inherent sort of insecurity just within the landscape of 2025 and where we're at right now. So I do believe that someone can show up for you with their whole heart and with their energy, because I think people read energy a lot more than they realize. So things like, I'm not going anywhere, they can say the right thing, do the right thing, keep their actions and their words in line, and do a really good job. And there's probably definitely opportunities where you don't need to go further than that. But
right.
let's just talk about something a little deeper than that. How much access do you think someone should be able to have to else's life to be able to, keep that clean? Like, do you think people should have phone access? Do you think people should be able to go, who are you talking to? Should you be putting yourself and someone else on FaceTime at the same time to keep it cool? Should they be like, what are the layers that you can go through that would add a level of comfort just with everything going on right now? Is it like, look, here, swipe through my DMs, here, go do this?
Yeah.
Like, You have
Yeah.
whenever you want access. I don't know. I mean, like
Yeah.
what can you do? Because I feel like that's gotta be one of the problems with this day and age of dating is there's just so many opportunities to fail, and there's just so many options to think maybe this one should, and I'll just move on. Maybe one will be easier.
We're talking about kind of like guardrails around like infidelity or wandering eyes or conversations. There's no one size fits all, so I'll give kind of a couple answers here and talk about the core of what determines the level of, I guess, access or checking or whatever happens in a relationship. I will say that the most healthy relationships are probably the ones where it's been established like, yeah, you can look at my stuff anytime you want. I don't care. You have my password. I leave my phone out. I never like, I'm like in the shower, my phone's sitting there. My wife could get into my phone anytime she wants. And she does for random stuff, right? Like like I for some reason I'm the only one signed into our Amazon account and I don't care. I'm fine. And so it's like there's this not this rule, but this establishment that says like
Yeah.
you have access, but nobody looks. Like I never look at her stuff. She doesn't look at my stuff because there's so
It's a
much
beautiful
trust.
paradox, isn't it?
It is. It's the coolest thing in the world. It's my favorite. Like you can look, but I won't. It's like because I don't need to. And I think
Do you
of
think
what
you should ask, or see the one thing that comes to mind too is it's like you are offering, it sounds like in some way, but what if you
mm,
ask? Is that just as good as offering? Is it like, hey, I want to be able to look in your phone anytime I want. I want to be able to ask questions anytime I want and get an answer because it's like always that rub between like I'm kind of like shit, dude, what. But if I
mm.
ask, then I'm the psycho.
It depends on what trauma a person comes into a relationship with. If they've had some infidelity in the past, there needs to be some level of empathy and understanding on the other side, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like if, let's say, you experience infidelity, you're in a relationship with somebody and you're saying that to them, they understand the history and the context of that. I think the way you frame it is also really important, right? It's like, hey, listen, I actually don't assume that you're doing anything. I actually do trust you. I care about you. My trauma doesn't always trust people in general, right? It's not that I don't, it's this part of me that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And even giving a vision for the future. I hope that I never actually feel this way. Like in the future, I'll be like, oh yeah, we once said I want to be able to see your stuff. And then one day I just want to be like, no, I never even think about that anymore. That's where I want to go with you. But just so you know, like, as we're more committed and we're closer, like, that trigger's probably going to come up for me a little bit. And just to know that you're okay with us looking through things. And I'm going to try not to, but like, as long as you're okay with it, like that gives me comfort and just knowing where your heart's at, right? All these layers, you're like giving them benefit of the doubt. You're painting a vision of the future where you're not looking because that's really what you want to be, right? On the other hand, there's those who have been through that kind of trauma and they justify it for hyper controlling behavior where they're like, I got to look through your phone, whether you know it or not. I'm going to look whenever I want. If I don't look, then that means that you're hiding something and you can't go and do this and that and that. And there's all these guardrails all of a sudden, and they couch it under for my safety. And it's like, oh crap. Like, what does that even mean at that point? No, 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 no. Like you need to do your own work at that point. If it's to where you're impeding on the autonomy of the other person. And I also think that requests should be open-ended. Like, listen, if that's not cool with you, I totally get it. That's what I need right now in this relationship. And if you're not cool with that, then yeah, it may not be the right fit because that's just what I need. Such a
Mm.
secure way of like saying, okay, it's not an ultimatum. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
leave you. You have to do this. It's just
It's more of a
I just
boundary,
need
it sounds like,
it,
right?
yeah, it is much more of a boundary.
It's more about like this is how far out, like this is it. Like if we like this is my comfort zone, and if you're not going to stay in it, then it's not for me. Which I always found, I was one of those people like so long ago when I first started diving into all relationship stuff and attachment styles and everything where, somebody's like, "Oh, boundaries." And I'm like, "Yeah, you lack boundaries. You need Oh, yeah, what are you talking about?" Like I always thought they were just like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a tough bitch." Like you think kidding me? You think someone's crossing me? And then when I realized they were for myself, I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah. Oh yeah. I think even boundaries that we think are for somebody else are really like you're saying it perfectly, and you're saying something that not a lot of people do. And I preach this all day, which is it is a self-imposed limit that sometimes has an external communication factor to it,
Mm-hmm.
which is, hey, I don't let myself stay in relationships at this stage where somebody refuses the idea of us being able to have access to each other's phones and information. That is you making the choice for you. It's not about them. And it's so freeing, and it actually makes it more simple when you start seeing that, because you're like, is that a fair rule to put on them? Like, no, like you're not actually putting it on them. You're putting it on yourself, and you get to decide if it's fair and if that's what you want. Cool.
They're so helpful because it's like I look at it now, it's like it teaches you how to love me. And
Hmm.
when you tell me, it teaches me how to love you. That's
How
it. Like
nice is that?
if you say a boundary is like, I can't feel the pressure of needing to text you all day, every day. Like good morning, good night, and anything in between is and I'll be like, oh, okay, because then anything more than that is me not loving them because I'm disrespecting them and what they say they need to feel comfortable, right? So like I think they're great, and I'm not necessarily the best at communicating them all, but I
Right.
having the understanding that they're for myself and ultimately coming down to self-love, right? Like that's
Uh,
essentially what it is. It's sometimes I try and look at I look at like my inner child. It's like a little
yep.
girl. It's like
Yep.
what if this was happening to my daughter? Would I
Mm.
think this is okay? Because
Oh, yeah.
it disassociates me from my do anything, get it done, like anxious, like trauma bot, like human adult body, and it goes to the little girl and goes like, oh no, I'm so much more objective.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that you mentioned that. And I'll kind of add another layer there. So we do this thing called the Secure Self Club, and it's like focus on helping people become secure. And one of the effects of that is that they start setting boundaries, because it's just like a natural byproduct of the two things that are happening. Number one is that they're overcoming that fear of abandonment, which will drive you to not set boundaries. Because if you're afraid of abandonment, you're going to people please. You're going to give them whatever you think they want. You're not even going to show up as your authentic self. You may not even know who that is because you've been in this actor role your whole life trying to win approval and affection, but you show up that way. And that doesn't create good situations because, yes, people pleasing, being authentic, we can imagine what that plays into. But then on the other side, the healing the self-love aspect, or what I call the I'm not good enough story, and you tie it back to the inner child. And I often conceptualize, even in our work and in our program, we'll do these like active visualizations where we're visiting the inner child, because usually the inner child is a who we need to protect, and also in the true sense of protection, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second. But the inner child's also the part of us that's trying to protect us in a less mature way. So little
Yeah.
Danica's in there going, everyone's going to leave me. I'm not enough. I can't, I'm going to be alone. Like, we have to please them. We can't set the boundary.
Yeah.
And it's really that part of you, because I bet everyone listening also has a wise part of them that's more adult, more nurturing, knows what they want. And there's almost like this conflict. And the inner child will almost always win. That's meaning when you're in that triggering situation where you feel like, oh gosh, maybe I do want to say something, but I'm going to people please instead. I'm not going to hold a boundary. That's the inner child. Eh, Not call. I want to say having a victory, but at the same time they're losing, because all of you is losing at that point. But they trumped.
Right.
Their fear trumped your wisdom. And so like
Mhm.
we do this thing, and it's like so cool. We're like going in and having these active, like loving, nurturing conversations where it's like, hey, little Trev, like you actually don't need to be worried about that anymore. Like, because guess what? Like, I've got you. And this
Mhm.
is why it's better. And this is why it's
Mhm.
safer. And man, like, it just
Mhm.
brings up the tears and the feels. And I mention that specifically because the emotion that's created through an experience like visualizing that inner child and loving them and holding them, the emotion is what creates the long-term transformation. Someone can sit here and understand the concept all day. They could like write a thesis on it, and they would feel just as wounded, just as fearful. They'd fall into the same patterns because it's a logical understanding, or what I call a head change,
Yeah.
and not a heart change. And the
Yeah.
heart change comes from emotional
Yeah.
experiences that
Feeling
like
it.
reprogram you.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
always feel that that's so true. Like that's the work that I've done around inner child or EMDR or even plant medicine It's
Yeah.
when you connect the idea with the feeling and you're there. You're in
Yeah.
it actually.
Yes.
And that's what creates the original bad wound, the bad one you're trying to correct too. It can make the good ones, but it makes the bad ones too. And so
Yes.
it's almost like it's that feeling connected with the thought that creates the etching in the psyche and the pattern of a certain way. And if you can re-etch it, you can do it again, you can change it, and but it's always within that true feeling. It's like even when I've learned like visualization techniques, it's in understanding why and then how you'd feel and then putting yourself there and
Yeah.
actually, which is hard. Like it's hard to see yourself getting what it is that you think is difficult, right? Like to
Yeah.
actually believe it. And you find it once you do find the way though, there's
Right.
always some emotion left. There's a smile, like there's a warmth, there's tears, there's
Yeah.
a actually like holy shit, that was real. And
Yeah.
that to me is where I've found the most healing. That's why I think all the things that I just mentioned, like inner child work, EMDR, plant medicine, that's why they're all so powerful. And that's what I would argue plant medicine for is that it
Right.
forces you into it a little bit more. Where,
Right.
some of the talk therapy, you have to be ready. Whereas with some of that, yeah, there's definitely a factor of being ready to get to a depth level, I think, because you can
For
block the
sure.
medicine. But it definitely helps get past, kind of break, makes that wall pretty short.
Right, right. That totally makes sense. And an example that I've been giving recently, because we try to describe this concept of information doesn't create transformation. You have to
Mhm.
feel to heal, is
Yeah,
my cute little
totally.
packaged up phrase. And people are like,
That's
"But
so
what do you
right.
mean?" And I say, "Well, I was at a Lauren Daigle concert like months and months ago,
Oh,
right? And it was awesome. I was there with my wife. It's probably more than a year ago, actually. But anyway, I almost never donate specifically to like the charities. Like I have my own like way of donating and helping in other places. Um, and but in this one, they did like this little, I don't know, we call it halftime. There's not really halftime, but in the middle,
yeah.
they're
Oh, the
like
intermission.
showing this video, right? And it's about these kids in Guatemala who need funding to like go to school and all this other good stuff. And they're like showing these kids and they're like watching the video and it's already an emotional setting. We're feeling good. We're listening to this awesome
The
music and
energy is high frequency energy, positive music anyway. So
100%, right? And then you plug that in with like this like loving, empathetic, inviting video of these kiddos who need some love and some help. And I'm like, heck yeah, dude, like I'll spend like $40 a month and give it to these kids. Like that's
oh.
totally fine. And so, we donate to those guys and it was because the emotion that I had that got my behavior to change, right? If they gave me like a list of statistics on why kids are the way they are in Guatemala and how they feel and how they're stuck and not educated and all this other stuff, I'd be like, okay, that's like a bummer. And they'd be like, do you want to donate? I don't know if I would have had the same response, right? My behavior probably wouldn't have been the same because I've been hit up like that a million times for all sorts of things that I have said no to. And yet, so if the person who's listening is going, "Oh yeah, I know all the attachment style stuff. I know what I am. I know what I need to change. I just can't freaking do it. Like I can't get myself to change." Well, it's probably because you're using logical solutions to address an emotional problem and you need an emotional solution. You got to feel something in order to then change the behavior naturally.
I firmly believe that you have to, the only way to the other side is through. I don't think that you can just like, yes, in the moment you can elevate your mood and emotion to be a higher level than the pain or trauma. You can put yourself
Yeah.
above it to be in a different reality. I just don't think it sticks because that little thing called triggers happens. Like you can't
Yeah.
stop that one. That's where the inner child or the ego comes in and goes, hang on a second. I think that you do have to go into it, but I always feel like, I had a pretty good life. Like, I mean, I've definitely gone through those levels, but there are people that just don't want to see it. They don't want to experience it. They don't want to face it. It's almost like it's too big.
Mm,
What would you say to
yeah.
someone that thought that it was just too big?
Meaning like they just feel like they're like too messed up and it's not going to happen, like hopelessness, or is it fear of doing
Like
the work?
I don't ever want to feel like that again. Like I don't ever want to feel whatever's going on inside that is creating this feeling of shame,
Ah,
regret,
yeah.
like those super
Yeah.
the lowest frequency emotions. Like, I don't want to go into that. I don't want to fucking talk about it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to, because I think that really exists. There's some of that stuff out there, and perhaps some of it's big T trauma, like abuse and rape and all that kind of stuff. But it's also like how horrible their mom made them feel, or their dad,
Right.
or someone,
Right.
right? Like, it's like, I don't even want to touch that.
From what I've experienced in working with people is that you actually going and feeling the shame again, or feeling the regret, or feeling all of that isn't very helpful. Going and actually experiencing the negative emotion. What I like is the concept of, and we'll embody it within an example of the inner child so it makes a little bit more sense. I like the idea of witnessing the shame, witnessing the pain, the hurtful emotion from actually a place of strength, right? That's why I like the concept of I'm going in and I'm going to find the little me that's in his shame. We get real personal here. I'm going to find the little me who was exposed to pornography for the first time in his life. He felt like he was the worst guy in the world. He didn't know how to tell mom and dad. He ran upstairs and he said it and hid in his bedroom and felt like crap. And I mean, my mom and dad were beautiful and amazing to love and support in those kind of moments. They've got 4 boys. They're going to encounter that probably with all of us
Of course.
in this world, right?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find him in his bedroom and I'm gonna sit next to him and I'm gonna say, Trevor, I'm so sorry, man. That was really scary, huh? That was kind of weird. And of course you thought it was interesting. Of course you liked it. Do you know that's okay? I'm sure you don't. It's probably not the best thing to go back. I know you probably are interested in that, but guess what? Like, it's okay that it happened and you're still the amazing boy that you are. And I love you and I'm holding you, right? I'm coming in with a ton of love.
Mm.
It's all about like approaching the pain with the love that you have within you and just giving it to another part of you that's stuck on the shame, on the pain, on the regret, the fear, whatever else it is. So to say like, oh, you gotta go and you like feel all the hurt and relive the moment when dad left or anything, I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
No, 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 no. That's
Yeah.
really not how this goes. There's a
Yeah.
much more positive, forward thinking way of
Yeah.
doing this work.
Yeah, that is that. In fact, I'm glad you clarified it like that and framed it like that. That's far more, well, that's empowering, is what that feels like, as opposed to powerless or scary. That is how I experience it in a lot of those scenarios. EMDR, that's exactly how I'm like, when I describe it to people, I'm like, oh, I get to rewrite that event because I see it from my mature adult standpoint instead of my in the moment when I didn't have the experience and the knowledge. And then that's how it kind of is with some plant medicine too. Like, you get to observe it. There's far more of an observer involved in these experiences. And I love the framing though, that it's a way to revisit it as an adult and mature and
Mhm.
and safely, right?
Yeah.
To be able to tell the little girl or the little boy, like, you're okay and you're still loved, and everyone goes through these things and you'll be fine, and you're
Yeah.
strong now, and you're not, and you're lovable, and you're worth staying for, and
Mm.
all of those things. That is a really beautiful way to frame that.
As you say that, I want to give like a tangible, like a way of also doing this that's much more forward thinking and action oriented. Because I think a lot of people, they'll come visit us and their complaint is either in their coaching or their therapy, whatever they've been doing. They're like, I feel like I just kind of dig up the past and it makes me feel like crap.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like, okay, then in my mind, you're whoever's leading you through that is doing it wrong. An example of a more forward thinking, and this is more aligned with like a coaching type of approach than maybe a therapist might do, but which is we like to recognize the unmet needs of the inner child. What did you not get? We make it really easy. We like print out this huge list, and then for the most part, everybody finds like the one. They're like, that's it. I'm gonna circle it. And you're like, okay, now let us do this. Let us envision the inner child for a moment and ask, is that what you need? And they'll probably confirm it. You'll probably feel it within you. You'll get that resonance and be like, okay, I can kind of hear it. And
Mhm.
then in your daily life, this is the moving forward part, is you create daily rituals and routines to fill that need. I'll give you a really cool story. There was a woman in our program who she recognized that her unmet need was to be seen and like heard. She was the youngest. She wasn't heard a lot, just kind of slipped in the background.
Yeah.
And so what she did is she had a pretty long commute, and on her commute, she would do a voice note and she would just talk out loud about her day and like what she was feeling, how it was going, tell stories,
Hmm.
tell a joke. It didn't matter. She's just whatever she wanted to say. And then about halfway through, she would listen back to it as if she was listening to like her best friend, somebody who deserved a lot of attention. And
Wow.
she was like, I would make myself laugh, I would make myself cry. I loved that time with me. And what happened then, this is the coolest thing. It helped her fill up her emotional cup. And so she wasn't desperately trying to get it from her partner. And that's what
Yeah.
happens is when we get in our cycle,
Mhm.
there's a thing called the tempo cycle that I teach. But if you're, it's like basically the anxious attachment cycle and how it plays out. But if you're in that cycle, you are usually projecting your need onto somebody else. Fill this for it, fill this. And so she would come home with all this energy, being like, you gotta listen to me, basically, or else
Mhm,
my
mhm.
deep existential unmet needs from childhood will not be met. Whoa, damn, that's like a lot for somebody to deal with. And it would turn into conflict if the partner wasn't ready
Oh, sure.
to.
Distracted or didn't have time or whatever that thing is, right? Like it could be anything. If you don't sit down and look at me and repeat back what I just said, we're in
Yeah,
trouble.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
what happened is that it didn't only just help her feel more settled as a human being and just like enjoy her life, and her commutes were a whole lot better. Which if you can make a commute better, that's amazing. I hate driving. Um,
Not me.
well, I hate driving in traffic.
Traffic. Okay, fair, fair.
Yeah. I was gonna say we have to
You could look
driving
at it
fast.
like a you could look at it like a Daytona 500 race when it's traffic, you know.
Yeah,
I can.
traffic. Yeah, stop and go, no fun. But it also influenced the outcomes of her relationship. And that's the big takeaway I try to
Yeah.
teach people is when you heal yourself, you do your work, it's not this woo-woo manifestation thing at all. If you believe in that, that's cool. If you don't, that's cool too. But it's just you change the input and it will change the output. It really is that simple. And I think
Mhm.
that's hopeful. It's like, will it work
Like,
for me? If I
yeah.
change who I am, will it
Yeah.
help me find somebody? Yes. It's like math. It just works.
It's like reparenting, right? I always think to myself in the work that I've done, it's like, what is it if I like feel like a reaching for something like, God, I wish they just do this for me. Then I'm like, okay, how can I give that to myself? Right?
Mm,
If I want
wow.
attention, like the only time I've ever actually felt lonely, I can get bored, but like I'm not someone that feels like lonely. Only time I've ever felt lonely is in a relationship. And that's because it's the furthest I am from myself, right? I abandon
Whoa.
myself the most in those scenarios. I think about that when I reach and yearn for something and wish they would make me feel better. I'm like, how do I give this to myself? How do I give this to myself? And that sounds exactly like what you're saying. It's like, oh, I want someone to talk to me. Pfft, I'm going to talk to me. Hold on a second, you know?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's such a creative way of just like giving yourself what you need. And it's
Yeah.
so simple, right? It's like, oh, I've got an unmet need. I'm projecting it onto other people. What should I do? Well, maybe make a daily ritual and routine that plugs that in.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
such the best
It
thing.
seems like it'd be the hardest for people pleasers to do that one.
Hmm.
Like,
How
the
so?
people pleaser aspect because they aren't even willing to ask for anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like they don't even know what they want sometimes because they're just so busy people pleasing and keeping everyone happy
yeah.
that they don't even, yeah, they're on red alert for what someone else might need.
I will say this. People pleasers, when prompted into a thoughtful place, can become aware, maybe not readily of what they need, but what they're afraid of. It's pretty easy for them to find their fears.
Mm,
And it's usually fears of rejection, abandonment, lack of nurturing, losing connection. Like, there's a list. They're all very similar. They're pretty
mhm,
quick to find their fear. And the fear and the need are just the yin and the yang. They're two sides of the same coin. And so you
mhm.
just kind of look at the opposite side of the fear and you're like, okay, that's what you
Yeah,
need. It's like,
yeah,
I'm afraid that somebody won't be there and love me. Oh, it sounds like you need nurturing and like love. Or I'm afraid that people are going to come and go and they won't stay. Oh, you need consistency. That's like, it's always the other opposite side. So that's what
yeah,
I would help a
yeah.
people pleaser to do.
You had mentioned something earlier about porn, and I'd be like mad at myself for not asking the question with anybody that deals with relationships as much as you do, but it's just because it's been on my mind so much. my intuition, I'm a girl and like I don't watch porn, but I know girls do too. They do. I have watched it a couple times. In fact, the story where it was revealed that I didn't, my friend is like, "Oh man, I can't believe I didn't ask you my favorite question." And it was like me and another girl and him, and he's like, "What's your favorite search for porn?" And I was like on Google, and he was like, "No." He's like, you don't watch porn?" I was like, "No." And then made me watch Two Girls in a Cup for the first time. So that was fun. But it's a horrible like old video. It's very disgusting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I just feel like it's an epidemic that is ruining men. I
Uh,
mean, I think it's ruining men. I think the ideas that it must place in their head, what they want, and then I feel like it's like this dirty rabbit hole of like escalating craziness that they watch to get stimulation.
oh
They
yeah.
can never recreate that in real life and with someone
Mm,
they respect.
some progressive types would say that there's room for porn in relationships. At least for the demographic I tend to work with, there is no room for porn in a relationship. And with, I will say, stripping away shame from the conversation, because shame is the thing that keeps a guy stuck. The guy who like has the morals to say I don't want to do this, but the shame that
Ah,
buries him under the weight of I'm a bad guy will keep him silent, which keeps him out of recovery.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes perfect sense.
So I have to pull that away and say, like, okay, when I say there's no room for it, does that mean that you can't be in a relationship and be actively like working on it and making strides while having setbacks, but also being committed to the process? Yeah, that can definitely happen, right?
Mm,
More power to that guy. That's amazing. The difficult part of that is the opposite side. Like if his wife is dealing with that and it's stirring up her own fears, hurt, and insecurities, which of course it would,
yeah,
right? We all kind of hear the thing like it's not about you, and yeah, that's true for the most part.
but I'm still
But
here
yeah, like I'm still here.
with
I
feelings.
still feel not chosen. Like it's the closest thing you can get to sexual infidelity, like actual sex with another human being without actually doing that. It's like
Yeah,
it's so dang close. And so of course it's going to trigger the same biological instincts and fears and just even from speaking of biology, women have a much greater risk when it comes to sex due to simple fact of pregnancy. And
yeah,
so deep in our biology, women will have a greater level of like fear or gatekeeping or walls around the idea of an unfaithful partner.
sure.
And so
Far more
something that's
dangerous.
even pseudo or close to it is going to feel very, very scary. No, and there's so many reasons why it's very difficult. So or what am I saying? Very difficult is not the right word. Destructive. And let's go back to the attachment framing. Let's
Okay.
say we've got an anxiously attached man this time, which does happen. I'm evidence that it exists. And their fears are abandonment, rejection, all the core things we've been talking about. Well, they get introduced to pornography at some point, probably at a young age, usually an accident, most of the time, or a friend shows it to them, and they're exposed. And it's like, whoa, the biology and the curiosity and the excitement of it all is just cool in general for probably anybody.
Men are
But
super visual
then,
too, so
yeah, and then you take that same kid and you have him grow up a little, and he has all these fears of him not being good enough, that no girls like him. And then it turns into evidence that girls don't like him because he's maybe trying too hard. He's not confident. He's, showing up with these behaviors that are protective in a nature. Like he's trying too hard. He's trying to protect himself from abandonment, but he gets more abandonment and rejection. And so he's left with less dating opportunities and this mountain of evidence that he's not good enough. And then he finds this escape hatch. He finds women who are infinitely beautiful, perfectly shaped. They never reject him. They never say no. They always say yes. 2, 3 in the morning, doesn't matter. She's always awake. And he can find the drug in the moment.
oh yeah.
And
And you get a
it's
huge dopamine hit and a huge like good feeling for a second. So there's always like a reward.
yes, yes. And then in a lot of cases, there can become this dependence or a disinterest in your actual partner because the experience isn't the same, or you're just
Or
not ready.
performance
Yep.
issues. Because there's
Yes,
no
absolutely.
chance of performance issues with your phone or a computer or something like that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. And it's like it doesn't matter. Nobody's there to
doesn't matter.
judge
Who
you.
cares?
Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody
Yeah.
cares. And I will say that the deeper issue here also is that the pain is continually numbed rather than addressed and healed. And
Mm,
as long as it's continually numbed, that's when you have like emotional stunting of growth. It's like
hmm.
I'm 40 years old and I'm in a 10-year-old emotional body right now because I just haven't matured past these things.
Oh yeah.
And because every time a difficult feeling comes up, and then it spreads to all feelings. I feel stressed, turning it on. It's not just loneliness. It's not just
Right.
feeling.
Now it's solving a problem.
Yes, yes. And so it's just a maladaptive solution. And the good news is there's other solutions. They take a little bit more work and a little bit more focus and discipline and guidance. But like the hopeful message I have to like the guy who might be listening to this and like, dang, that's totally me. Like I'm the piece of garbage they're talking about. Well, listen, we've never said that you're a piece of garbage. You
Right.
probably call yourself that.
You
That's
know,
also what goes
exactly.
along with it. That's what keeps you hidden. It's
Yeah.
like no, you're hurt. You just numb your pain in a way different than other people do. Some, I mean, some women are literally addicted to avoidant men in the same way that you can be addicted to pornography. If they're anxiously attached and the guy, oh, hide behind those hands. Yeah. If the guy all of a sudden gives you attention and in the beginning, he's liking it, there's no commitment, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
and then he
Yeah.
pulls back, that's the
Yeah.
withdrawal. Your supply gets cut off if we're
Yeah.
talking like
Yeah.
the drug of choice. And then he comes back a little and it's like, oh, thank you. You get that other hit. And it creates this addictive cycle that literally mimics like a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, that's how I like to think of healing a pattern for myself. It's like I'm addicted to a drug in its nature biologically, meaning something happens, there's like a hormonal loop that happens, and it's not that I think it's good to be on crack cocaine, but I'm on it, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Yes.
doesn't mean so repeating it is a bad thing and breaking it is the same pain. It feels wrong, it's really difficult, it's so
Yeah.
hard to stay consistent, it's hard to even notice it I have to remind myself I am breaking a habit. I am breaking a habit. It feels wrong. It feels uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. I feel like totally justified to react the way I used to, but it's like a drug. You're recovering, right? That's how it
Yeah.
feels to me. It feels like I remind myself it should be like that.
Yeah. I'm going to botch this quote a little bit. I'm working on memorizing it. I haven't got it yet, but I heard this, and I've never been as highfalutin and intellectual as to quote Shakespeare in my life, but this was a Shakespeare
Here we
quote.
go.
I know. Look at this. I should yeah. But the words were just so compelling along this same idea. And it says, what win I if I gain the thing I seek? A dream, a breath, a froth of fleeting joy. Who buys a minute's mirth to wail a week? Who for one sweet grape doth the vine destroy?
Wow.
And
Good
I
job.
I was just like, oh, I'm stoked that I got it. Just by the
Good
way,
job.
some Shakespeare heads
Now
like, you missed
unpack
one
that,
word.
please, in English for us.
Yeah. So at the beginning it says, "What win I if I gain the thing I seek?" Like, what am I? It's almost questioning your motive, right? Let's say it's getting the attention from the guy you probably already know is avoidance, but you're like just pursuing it anyway, right? What win I? I get a breath, that moment, a froth, a quick moment, a fleeting joy. It's fleeting. It's not going to stay around forever. And then the second part, I had to look up the word mirth. Like, what does that mean? It says, who buys a minute's mirth? And mirth is like a moment of excitement and elation and joy to wail a week. And it's like the long term
Oh.
outcome, right?
Hmm.
You're trading. And this is the idea that I love to say is everyone gets to pick their burden. Their burden is either this moment, I don't get the thing I want,
Sure.
or long term, I get all the burdens that come from that. And so it's kind of along that same line. And then at the very end, I love the word like, who's going to pick that one sweet grape to destroy the vine? I don't know how that would work, but the idea is like somehow
Hmm.
picking that grape destroys the source of nutrients, the source
Hmm.
of life.
Hmm.
And I think I've thought of that quote recently in moments where
Hmm.
I'm like, gosh, I mean, I've just started doing some intermittent fasting and cutting out a lot of sugars and things like that. I'm trying to do a better job there. And I definitely have moments where I'm like, oh, one sweet grape, that's all I want out of this moment right now. But I remember like the long-term impact, like my heart, my health, my family, like
Yeah,
the
well,
thing.
that's pain delayed is pain multiplied.
Ah, yes, that's a
That's really,
great way to say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's my
Figure.
one of my new favorite quotes.
I
It's
love that. That's
yeah.
beautiful and really good job. Very true. But I think that's really true. Pain delayed is pain multiplied. You can just say yes now and get through it. I think, it's like a lot of the things we've talked about today. I think about Jordan Peterson and he talks about them too. And, this
Mm,
would be like the monster inside that grows. It's like it's just small and you want to slay that dragon when it's yet less small. But the longer
yeah.
you wait, the dragon is overpowering. And you just don't want to wait that long with anything.
There's a very helpful, if we have time for it, a little
Yeah.
framework that I give
Yeah.
people that illustrate how this works, how what you and I are saying in concept and kind of theory, like how you are feeding your dragon and making the cycle worse. Can I share it with you?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. So I mentioned it before. Call it the tempo cycle, TEMPO, kind of like tempo to a beat. And I will say, I didn't come up with the acronym. There's this model of therapy called emotionally focused therapy. It's primarily for couples. Originally, it was actually created for individuals and then branched into couples, and the couples modality became the most famous. Sue Johnson is the founder of it. And I got this acronym from a training of theirs that I did in Arkansas one time, but I've kind of adopted it in a slightly different way. If we think about an anxiously attached person who is, because that's kind of maybe the subject matter of who we're talking about today, they are getting into this loop where every time they find themselves in a relationship, they find themselves triggered, they go through this spiral and they self soothe in that spiral in a way that makes the problem worse. And this framework will kind of show us how, and it'll help people recognize and break their own pattern. So the T is the trigger. I'm over here like signing it. The T is the trigger, the moment, right?
Yep.
Let's say classic trigger is they don't get the text back. Oh gosh, I'm waiting for him to text me. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
going to. I'm making up all these stories in my head. The E is the emotions that you feel. And at this point, we're just observing all of it. We're not trying to change any of this. I feel maybe embarrassed because I text him and he didn't text me back. I feel angry because he's not texting me. I feel hurt. I feel just anxious and overwhelmed. Okay, just write down the emotions. The M is the meaning that you're making in that moment. What's the
Yeah.
story you're telling
Yeah.
yourself about the T or the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
He hates me, he doesn't like me, he doesn't respect me, he's doing stuff with other women. Like the whole list could go on of the meaning that you make. And that meaning usually activates a protection, and you're protecting yourself from your core fears and wounds, which is fears of abandonment, fear. You're trying to solve the problem that you're creating in the meaning as well, right? I'm trying to
Could
protect
the
myself.
meaning also include like I'm not good enough, I'm not
Oh
smart
yeah.
enough? Okay, all right.
Oh,
So it's
oh
not
yeah.
just like them, it's like also what it brings up in you. Okay.
Tons of that. Yes, yes, yes. That's usually probably the core meaning,
Yeah,
honestly. I'm
exactly.
glad
That's
that
what I was
you
thinking of. It's like the meaning is like, well, the meaning is like I'm not good enough, or meaning is they don't really love me, or whatever.
Yes, yes. So you're sitting there making this meaning that you're not good enough and that they're discarding you like a piece of
Hmm.
garbage. And then the P is how you protect yourself. And this is where you feed the dragon, essentially. The P is there's many things you could do. You could ruminate all night, overthink, ask ChatGPT what you should say, what you should have said, how to solve it, and just
Watch more attachment
ruin.
videos to figure it
Yeah,
out, to
watch.
be like be in my head about it, learn.
Exactly. Watch more attachment videos.
How do you know if
Uh,
they're the right one or the wrong one videos?
exactly. So a night of rumination when you could have had an enjoyable night, maybe like with your friends or doing something else or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
just eating a meal and thinking about nothing sounds better than that, but you're not. Or maybe you reach out again. You're double texting. You're kind of doubling down, and it might feel a little overwhelming to the other person. Or maybe you text them with like a little bit of frustration. Hey, what the heck? Where are you? Like, I've been waiting for you to respond to me. Huh, that probably won't elicit a very good response either. Or, maybe you just wholesale give up. Ah, this isn't going to work. I'm the worst. And so you disengage completely and you do something else. When in reality, maybe they were just busy or life was going on and you have no idea. But the P always leads to the O. And this is where the dragon gets bigger. The O is the outcome. The outcome is what your protection created. So we'll go over all the examples. The overthinking, staying alone at night, you're just more miserable. And by the time you see them again, you're maybe trying to be whoever you think they want you to be, and you're less authentic. The relationship's not connecting. And really, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel good for you or them, and
Yeah.
things don't progress. Which, if they're not progressing, that's another T. That's another trigger. It starts
Mm-hmm.
over. Or maybe you double text and they're like, dang, you're overwhelming. Like, I can't do this. This is a lot. They withdraw, and their withdraw is another trigger. And so you go in for another round, right? You over and over and over again. It's wild how we can actually just like see it and map
Yeah.
it and know that it's happening.
The magic is trying to figure out how you create that pause within that trigger, right? Like,
Mm.
how can you get into your observer, like, not be in it so much? It seems like that's actually like a baked in program within the
Yeah.
human experience, is that something happens and boom. It's like a trigger is essentially, to me, feels like I don't know how you get, yeah, how do you create the pause? That's the hard thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a couple answers. I think you're saying something really important because it's kind of like, and you're not saying this, but part of what I'm hearing is like, yeah, it's cool to have like a framework that's very logical and that's nice, but like I'm probably never gonna freaking use it because when I'm triggered, like my brain is not in the place to be able to observe,
And I
and
feel
it's
totally
true.
justified, and I feel like, yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah,
100%. So we have to know that that's the truth. In an emotional moment, logical tools are very, very hard to access. That's
yeah.
why things like communication skills, unless they're first backed up with a lot of deeper emotional work that helps you be grounded, they're useless. You throw those things out the window. They don't really matter. They do matter if you first built in the
Yeah.
security in order to be grounded. But that's kind of hinting back to the answer of your question, which is how do I make it so that I can get into an observer moment or an observer mode when I'm triggered? And it is, I think you need to do work outside of the triggering moment to overcome, again, the core fears and beliefs. The fear that drives the cycle. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm not good enough. People are going to reject me. If you're doing the inner child work that we're talking about, the emotional experiences, you get to a place where your foundation is much more solid. Your
Yeah.
worth is intact. You don't have those fears. You may still feel the trigger come up. You probably will. They'll be fewer. You'll have them less often. They'll be less intense and they'll last a shorter amount of time. So frequency, duration, and intensity, they'll all go down. And then from that place, I always tell people, nobody's ever going to ask why you need to go to the bathroom. But the bathroom is the place where you can actually pull out your notes. You can look at your phone. You can map out your own tempo cycle and you can
Mhm.
go, holy crap. Okay, I'm in it right now. This is how I'm going to get out. And the cool part about the tempo cycle is that it's steps. You can get out at many places. You can get out at the meaning. Hold on, what's a different story I can tell myself right now? You can
Mhm.
get out of the emotion. What can I do to help myself just
Mhm.
calm my
Mhm.
body and my
Mhm.
feelings down? You can do
Mhm.
that. And maybe you just can't interrupt at those and you just got to interrupt at the P. And so you tell yourself, I'm not going to do that thing that I so desperately want to right now or feel an urge to that I know it's not going to help me. And then you change the behavior. So it's like you got at least 3 escape hatches. How cool is
Mhm.
that?
Yeah,
So
right.
that's
It's like almost
that's
like
always
there's like a bunch of mantras. I was thinking of those when you were saying them. It's like the things that I do for myself is like I have like little mantras, and I don't think I wanted them to be. They just became that. It's like, what's my part? What is the story I'm telling myself? What do I want from them that I should give myself? Like they're like little hooks, right? Of going like,
oh,
how do I turn this back in and go like, with tempo, you've got a whole bunch of essentially like mantra prompts of like, what's the story I'm telling myself? Why am I here? How am I feeling?
it's your little sanctuary, man. You just go in the bathroom. Nobody knows. Like they're not gonna be like, oh, really? What are you gonna do in there? You're gonna like map out your emotional tempo cycle. Like nobody's ever gonna think that. It's like, okay, cool. See you in a minute. Right? It's like I can do that for myself. And that's
Yeah.
what I tell people is like maybe your brain is totally what you think about what's actually activated in the brain. In that moment when you're triggered, it's all base brain. It's not logical. It's not the front part of your brain. And you need the frontal part of your brain to come online if you're going to use a logical tool because it's based in logic and that's where things happen. And so if you get distance, physical distance by just going to the bathroom or something, and that's the only decision, the good decision you can make. That's the only one. Cool. Because then that gives you capacity to make all the other ones. even trying to use the cycle will start to activate the front part of your brain that is used for logic and reasoning. It will literally take energy away from the emotional space and put it in the front part of the brain. And so, from a biological standpoint, you're moving yourself into a place of regulation by doing a more logical approach. I mean, you'll see therapists do this when somebody gets really emotionally flooded in a session. I've had people like do math. I'm like, okay, let's do some simple math. What's this divided by that? Tell me. And they'd be like, and it's hard and it's hard. And then they come back online. We do a few math problems and we come back and they're like, oh, I'm actually really good now. Okay, let's go back and we'll keep doing our work.
The desire is obviously secure attachment. I
Yeah.
talk a mean game, like I'm anxious, and I am, but I feel like I have learned a lot of techniques to be far more on the secure side of like having conversations, being rational, seeing their side. There's a lot of things out there. So if there's any potentials out there listening, like I'm not a complete disaster, but I definitely err on that anxious side. How do we become more secure? And then also on top of that, how early does that start? Because you talked about your secure, what is the group called?
It's called the Secure Self Club.
Secure Self Club. And it made me think, I'm like, how early could you start the club? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how early could you be 10 and like start learning sort of like tips and tricks? I mean, okay, maybe you're an adult in the club and there's also like ways to help your kids because, the idea would be that you don't ever have to really deal with it. Essentially, that part of your school, like personally, I believe all of this stuff should be taught in school. I don't have any idea why the shit that actually makes us miserable and also makes us so happy is not the stuff that we learn in school, right? I'm never going to use algebra 2. I'm
Yeah.
not going to use like, there's so much stuff we don't, chemistry, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is the real life stuff that really rules how we feel in our life and then perform in our life. How do you get secure before you really enter that dating phase and marriage and partnership? What are the steps we take and how do we get this into schools?
How do we get this into schools? I wish I had the answer to that, but I will say, how do we get it into my own home?
Mm.
You, as an individual, definitely can do that, whether it's in the school or not. And maybe it's one of those things that we say not in a defeatist place, because I think it's still important to, advocate for something like this being more readily available, because that would be amazing. But it's going, I'm going to take ownership for making sure that it is taught to my children. I'm not going to outsource that to somebody else. And so, like, I'm going to do it in my own home. And I will say this, the person that is most equipped to help a child become secure is one who is secure themselves.
Yeah.
You can do nothing more important than your own work, because the interpersonal interactions with caregiver are the things that create the security, not mom and dad teaching you some really cool ideas that they learned from Trevor and Danica on a podcast. Like, that's cool. Sure,
Yeah.
we want to do that. But the
Big to live it.
interaction between caregiver and child, infinitely more important than any kind of education.
I agree. Well, maybe someday there'll be some baby genius that isn't framing genius as being able to do 2 + 2 = 4. Maybe we need
Right?
to come up with some baby genius games that are like, how do I feel? Or like
Yeah, right.
some
Right.
way of teaching you emotional security. This is the challenge. I just feel like so much of life gets a lot easier when you can understand, where the pain is coming from, because then you can solve it. Seeing it is like when people get into the work and it feels overwhelming and they're like, oh, wow, this, some attachment, emotions, all the things, therapy. It's like, yeah, but you see it. And that took you, however old you are right now, to do that. So
Yes.
while maybe some of the more difficult parts are coming up from an energy standpoint, an emotional standpoint, it took you 36 years to get here, or it took you, right? Like the long part's over. You just got to get
Yeah.
across the finish line to, you know, taking all this information and going, okay, how can I do this for myself? How can I become essentially a secure person
Yeah.
where I'm filling my own buckets and nobody's in control of how I feel, right? I feel like avoidance get a bad name, but anxious attachment people, absolutely, like we need that other person to feel good, right? And
Yeah.
the avoidant just doesn't need that other person to feel good. It's the same. It's the other side. It's just one side of the coin versus the other.
Totally. And I mean, my goodness, whenever I post something on Instagram or wherever that like gives some empathetic view of the avoidant, I get all the very like angry, anxious attachers who have been hurt, and I'll give them like a big dose of like understanding and empathy as to why they do this. But they come at me with their digital pitchforks and torches, and like, because maybe they don't see it. But I will say that I think avoidants get a bad rep, just because they're not vocal. They're not out there defending
Yeah.
themselves. And the anxious, they tend to kind of get in their echo chamber. Like, yeah, he's the worst. And then it goes from, labeling people as avoidant to narcissists to like all these things that might not even be true. And this is the hard pill to swallow for an anxious. Sometimes he's not avoidant. The way you were in your tempo cycle triggered avoidant behaviors in him. And
Yeah.
maybe you keep doing that. So I know this is a hard pill to swallow, and it's not always the case, and I'm calling out the anxious, so don't hate me. Love me because I want to help you. But it is this. It's
Mm.
if you, for example, you're in your tempo cycle. Let's go back to the texting thing. You're in a committed relationship. And in your tempo cycle, the E is frustration and anger. And the P of protection is coming down hard on him. You never text me back. You never show up in the way that I want. It's like you don't even care. You don't love me. All of a sudden, you're diagnosing him as an unloving,
Mhm.
uncaring
He's like,
person. No, and that's
he's like
completely
nothing. It doesn't matter anyway. She won't see it, you know?
yeah, no, he can do nothing. He can do
Yeah.
nothing to win there.
Yeah.
And so even if he is not typically avoidant, or maybe he has a tendency to be a little bit avoidant, only under certain circumstances, I hate to say it, but sometimes the way your inputs create bad outputs in them. And am I saying that you're responsible for how they act? No, but you can influence how they act in a
That's right.
big way.
Just like someone, like for instance, myself can have learned a lot of techniques to be secure. Like, you can make me anxious. Like you can get me there,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
know what I mean? So just the
For
same
sure.
as the other side of it. Someone can be fairly secure. You do some needy stuff that's like unjustified or repetitious, and you're gonna make that avoidant a little bit. They're gonna make it come back to life. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
no doubt.
Totally.
No doubt.
Totally. So, and to kind of final little nail in the coffin is as far as answering the one question you had, which is like, how do we become secure? Well, first, all of the things that we're talking about here today, recognizing patterns, emotional approaches, and I'll give you four little points, not necessarily steps on how to get there, but elements to the process. Because if I were to try to give you the steps, it would take 4 months. I mean, we've got like a program that's 4 months long, and we do it, and it's awesome, and it would be amazing. But what's more important is zooming out and looking at what's included in the process that's meaningful and helpful. Number one, I think an anxiously attached person who wants to become secure or avoidant, they need structure in their healing. If you're going week to week to a coach, therapist, or anything else, and you're indefinitely answering the question of how was your week, and you're like, well, your answer sounds the same. You feel like a broken record because your week didn't change, and it's not changing because you're not trying, but because you don't have like a plan, a structure,
Hmm.
steps and
Hmm.
stages to get there. It's way too open-ended. I don't know. I might anger some people here. Even in like a master's program, I did a marriage and family therapy degree. It was they would teach the things like treatment models and approaches and whatnot, but it was always like very much more progressive and loose and open-ended. Like you go where it needs to go and let the client lead, and it depends on the model and depends on the approach. Some are much more directive and some are more client-led. But I think a lot of therapists in particular default to client-led because it feels easier. Where it's like, yeah, how was your week? We talk, we put out fires instead
Yeah.
of preventing fires. So structure, number one. Number two, you need emotional experiences. We already talked about what that means. And so you need to feel something to heal something. You also need repetition. Too often we consume a book, a podcast, a
Oh yeah.
session as if it's a meal.
Oh man, I'm motivated for like 3 whole days.
Oh, yeah, right? I want to give somebody the way you can have repetition is only if you have frameworks to go back to.
Of course, yeah.
You need frameworks. So if you get
Read
frameworks,
Atomic Habits then too, right?
There we go. There we
Create a
go.
habit, you
Yes.
know, like a way to do it so you remember to.
Exactly, a way to do it. I think about these things as I want to give you skills and tools like they're a piece of equipment in the gym. You can go back and you can use it every time. I might show you how to do it the first time. I'll give you one good rep. You'll get real sore when we do it. And then I'm going to give you the keys and say, keep going back. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. I'm going to check in on how you're doing. Right. So you need repetition.
Right. Well, that's
And
also
then,
neuroplasticity. That's how you reprogram the mind too. It's you know, you can have a deep emotional experience like we talked about with something big like a plant medicine or something like that. That's partly some way to do it quicker. You can but repetition is the most accessible way. Like that's how you create new neural
totally.
pathways and let the old ones die.
Anything comes with reps. Anything we're good at comes with reps. And then the last one, you mentioned this, and you're very insightful on this actually. You've said some things today that I'm like, oh, Danica's done some work. Like you've surprised me in some amazing ways, honestly.
Oh,
So props to you is that we know that we are hurt within the context of relationships. We talked about mom and dad being the primary caregivers
yeah.
and us receiving that in one way or another fosters an environment where we either become secure or insecure. And the insecurity comes from those negative emotional experiences. But the key there is in relationship is the key. And so I say in relationship, not meaning you need to be dating or something like that. You doing it within the context of community,
Sure.
I think is incredibly important. That's why as part of what we do, there's
Hmm.
like community involved. There's groups and you're
I've
very
learned that
intimate
way
with people.
too. I've absolutely learned that way. That's outside of an intimate relationship. You know, when I fell apart and felt like my only worth in a relationship was when I was doing something, and then I fell apart to the point that I couldn't take care of myself barely. And I had people show up for me, and I was like, oh, wow, people, I'm worth showing up for even if I don't do anything. Right.
Yes.
Like, that's beautiful when you can find that
That's it.
outside of your intimate relationship, and they are available, right?
Yes, yes. And I will say there's community, which is like supportive people that you can share anything with, and they are like fully there for you. You don't have to people please, you don't have to be inauthentic, and they create a disconfirming experience. It disconfirms the beliefs that you've held for a long time about
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough as I am. Then you get that's good. And then great or best is when you have a very specific focused community where people are actually working on the same challenges and the same issues. They're using some of the same tools. They're encouraging each other. They're getting stuck and motivating each other and winning all at the same
Mhm.
time.
Oh shoot,
Then
look
they're
at
having
like that's like going
fun.
to the gym. That's like going to the gym, you know, you're like we're both
Yes.
trying to do it. It's like, come on, you know, like
I see your stories. You're
community
always in the
around
gym.
a community around the same target is like even better.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you definitely know that. I see you and your friends getting ripped in the gym on your stories all the time. I
I
think
hel-
it's awesome.
covered the guns up today, but you know.
Yeah, thanks. I probably would have been a little too intimidated by that factor, but I say it's also more fun because this can be heavy,
Yeah.
hard work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And make you feel like I think there's so many people too that feel like it's just them or they're different or something's wrong with them or like no one's gonna understand. And then you end up realizing we all suffer from all the same shit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Or some
Absolutely.
shit, not always the exact same shit, but
It's pretty
definitely
similar.
suffer. It is,
Yep.
right? It's that's the weird thing is it's like, you know, it's kind of like anxious avoidant. It's like, you know, it's like I feel like the anxious kind of didn't get love, meaning it was kind of inconsistent, which created a little bit of an anxious and like and they read that as not love. Right. They read that as
Hmm.
like, oh, wow, I don't know. What is it going to take to keep mom or dad around? And then the
Right.
avoidant, you know, doesn't get love because they're kind of left to do their own thing and they're not really, you know, maybe their emotions didn't matter or something like that. They kind of just didn't feel love. And like both people kind of didn't feel love. And they kind of, but the expression is just both sides of the coin. Like, I need you to feel better and I need you to go to feel better, right? Like, leave. I mean, it's wild, the paradox of life and how it's really all a continuum it's all a continuum. It's a circle. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the amount of pain that you experience a lot of times opens you up to the amount of joy that you can experience too, which is just a crappy paradox, but it's true.
It's very true. It's very
Mhm.
true.
Yes.
So, yeah, those are kind of what I call the four essential elements. You got to have structure, repetition, emotional experiences, and community. And if you can find a resource that includes all four, which is what we've tried to do. But if you can find that, then your likelihood of succeeding is exponentially increased. And it doesn't have to take forever. People are like, I've been doing this for like years that we work with. They'll come in and be like, I've been doing this. We had a lady say she's been trying different therapists and coaches and things for 20 years. And we worked with her for 4 months. She's like, I've never felt better in my whole life. And I'm like, it doesn't like, I want to break the limiting belief in people's minds that like this has to take the rest of your life to figure it out. Will you always be healing and always be growing? Sure. Yes, I
I
am.
hope so,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, right. That's life, right? I
And
hope so.
if you didn't, your life would be void of a lot of purpose and
Mhm.
you'd be left feeling pretty empty if you didn't have suffering. So you got to have some still.
Yeah, to grow. Yeah. All right. Well, here's to growing. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
It's because of all of my work that I need to do on myself that I end up learning about wonderful people like you. So I always say, like, don't be mad at the master when they have their own issues. Like, the reason why they're probably pretty damn good at what they do is because they need it. It's cool that you're sharing your experiences with others to help them get to a place where they're healed and happy.
Well, I'm so grateful that like you let me come and do it with you, and it's so lovely to meet you. I've loved watching your content, and just actually meet you as a human being has been so rewarding.
Oh, thank you, Trevor. Well, I'll be calling you for therapy later.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.